Who's gonna start?
Start, you are live.
Welcome, folks. It says House Corrections and Institutions. It is Thursday, February 20th. It's our 8:30 meeting, running a little late. We're gonna spend part of this morning talking about our correctional facilities and the capital request in section 3 of the governor's proposed capital budget. And we're gonna start with BTS, Croatia. And I know we've gotten some previews on a few of these, but now's the time to really ask some questions. Get us ready for markup. We're going to start markup, we hope, next week. It'll be interesting. So welcome, Joe, and then you're going to share your screen, right?
An email for access, I'd be more than happy to share.
What is the email?
Joe.aj, that's AJA, at vermont.gov. Pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
I want to thank you for putting these charts. About
You're welcome.
it's really, and I know I talked to your commissioner about it when we got our book and said there's no charts here. And I spoke to your agents. It was Nick Kramer, because Sean wasn't here for the Agency of Administration, but these charts are really important.
Well, I'm glad you like it, and hopefully that will, you'll go easier on me because I'm trying to appease the chair.
Well, it helps us to know what
Yes, sir.
has been put in the past, so people can see, so we don't have to dig through so many papers.
Just a moment. I'm sorry, I was.
No, that's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
Else we don't have this digitally?
We do, we should.
Yeah, I have.
I don't see that.
It should have been
That's
posted.
next, not known that we're doing this one.
It should have been posted.
It's not,
It's not posted. Well, Will can do that.
it's corrections.
Yeah, if any documents aren't posted, they can be emailed to me.
Well, that would be from,
It's,
This is the.
you've got DOC, this is BGS.
yes, okay.
The DOC one has been posted, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
But we need the
one of that.
BGS.
Order
It's up
BGS.
behind you there, Joe, so you can see what it looks.
Yes.
Here, you want this? Joe,
Well, I think
I can look.
I can look it up too, because I think we've gotten previously, haven't we?
No.
No, this was just for today.
Oh, this is a Fretchy? Okay.
I don't know if Will
Well,
has
thank
it
you.
yet.
I'll look at
Oh,
it.
you said it was? Okay, so it's in the ether someplace.
Okay, now that it took us 10 minutes to get settled. Let's go, Joe.
For the record, I'm Joe Aja, the Director for Design and Construction with Buildings and General Services. Up for today is Section 3 for the Agency of Human Services, and these funds are appropriated to Buildings and General Services. First up, going down to the list is planning, design, construction, and the HVAC upgrade at correctional facilities. There are three correctional facilities. Four. Southern State, Northern State, Northeast State, Northeast Regional Correctional Facility, and also the Caledonia Community Work Camp.
Can I just interrupt you here, because I want the committee to know where these facilities are physically housed, because we do have new. Southern is Springfield, Northern is Newport, Northeast Regional is St. J, and the work camp is St. J.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so people can see where we are. Marble Valley in Rutland already has some air conditioning,
It's fully air conditioned, and so is Chittenden.
and so is Chittenden.
So the last one is Northwest State Correctional Facility in St. Albans. And that one, just because of the attics, its age and the likes of that, would be over $16 million to renovate to add AC. So right now it is on the future list and not part of this right now. So we have had some past funding for this. We have spent some of it as part of the design. We just recently opened bids for construction managers. However, nobody submitted a bid.
Oh,
So that is a problem. So we're in the process right now on the construction side to reach out to the contractors who visited the facilities during the pre-bid and to find out, ask them why they did not bid. Is it because there's 3 facilities, short time frame, and the likes of that? So what we're looking to do, and part of the funding was to try and get temporary system in certain areas of each facility so that we provide some relief that they can go to. Some of these facilities already have air conditioning in certain areas. Cormier can talk about those areas, but we're looking to add a little bit more. Design is complete on the temporary AC units. We just need a contractor to do it. So we may pivot again once we find out a little bit more why we didn't have anybody bid, and just bid out the temporary units and then look for the longer term units under a different bid.
okay, there's lots of questions on this one. I can, right.
So the design is complete for all 4, southern, northern, northeast, and
Temporary.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I meant, yeah.
For the temporary for all 4,
Yes.
design is done. Now, when you went out to bid and no bids, that was for the permanent, the real, not the
For
temporary.
temporary and permanent.
And permanent.
Yes.
And when we left here last year, it was Southern that was going to be the one that you were going to do the whole facility.
Correct. And that one, because of the length of time it takes to get equipment, we're still going to do temporary at Southern State to get it in this summer so they have some relief, because I would not be able to do any type of a permanent system online this year at Southern State.
But the permanent one, the first one, the facility that was going to be done for the whole facility was Southern.
That is correct. We're in,
When we left here last year.
yes, on the list behind me is the order of precedence: Southern State, Northern State, Northeastern Caledonia. Okay.
Right?
And southern is where you had the VOSHA complaints this past summer. What's the impact this summer on that? Like how much more improved will it be this summer than it was last summer?
Much more what?
Improved.
I can't answer that because I don't know how bad it was last summer, because I wasn't aware of the VOSHA, other than there's no air conditioning probably in those areas.
Yeah.
And so we are adding some, and I forget exactly where those temporary areas are going to be.
Do you have an update on the VOSHA?
Was the Was VOSHA done, was it last summer or the summer before?
It was last summer. I'm sure BSEA would probably have details for us.
So Al, can you weigh into that at all?
Yes.
Could you identify yourself?
For the record, Al Cormier, Chief of Operations for DOC. Yeah, the VOSHA complaint was last summer. I think there were 3 staff impacted by the heat there. So the temporary component that Joe's talking about, getting that in there and identifying areas where that temporary air conditioning will be. We have it in like the staff lounge areas now. The infirmary has it. But the temporary will give additional space for the staff to, when they're on a break, to get there.
But not when they're on the units.
Well, and that's where we're trying to figure out the placement for the temporary, which is.
Yeah, that's my question, I guess. How, like, improvement do we anticipate post VOSHA complaints? Was there a payout for that?
No.
All right. But we don't,
For the temporary units, it will not be in a living unit. It will be more of a shared space, a conference room or something like that, a training area that they can go to for some relief.
so it sounds like maybe not a very significant improvement from last.
It will not be a lot, right, to pick up all of those living units.
How far out do you think we are on having?
Depends on the equipment availability. It could be easily a year out to get equipment. And that would be after the design is complete, shop drawings are submitted, reviewed and approved and ordered. So that year and a half is from the date we place an order.
And that's on the 3 or just southern?
We're going to start with Southern State first. And so it's all about the funding to get us there.
Yeah,
Prices are very difficult to estimate. These prices is very difficult this day and age because it depends on the labor and the equipment in other areas, and then now we may be having tariffs added to it. So I'm not sure how far this money is going to go, but that's what we're looking at, and Southern State is first. As the money, we'll go to Northern State next. Because we're looking to do a construction manager, we're going to look to pre-buy equipment as soon as possible, so that helps.
Yeah.
And then what could happen is we have funding enough to do 2 of the living units at Northern State or something like that, we would go forward with that.
So how much was the anticipated cost to fully air condition Southern?
I don't have that in front of me. I know what we were originally looking at when we put these estimates together a year and a half ago. This was to get us temporary and all of the 4 facilities you see here in Mount Northwest. But until we have our design complete now and our construction manager on board, we have not updated the estimates.
So you went out to bid, and you went out to bid, was it just for the Southern facility?
For all facilities.
And what was the dollar amount on that? You must have had some ballpark figure to go out to bid.
I don't know the exact ballpark figure. It would have been our best estimate at the time. So probably, looking at 10 million, $11 million to complete this.
Because I think the Springfield facility was over 3 million just to do Springfield. And whatever was, we were gonna do whatever temporary areas possibly in the other 3 facilities. Priority was Southern. And when did that RFP go out? When did the bid go out? Construction bid go out?
Month and a half ago.
I know I'm bid.
Correct. The bid opening was just last week, and so what we're going to do is reach out to the contractors who attended the pre-bid meeting and ask them why they did not submit a bid. See if we can get any information, whether, they don't have the manpower to do all facilities. They didn't have enough time to do the temporary air conditioning or anything and the likes of that. And then that will give us an idea how to rebid the project. And maybe we only rebid temporary in Southern State, or it's temporary as a separate package and Southern State would be a package. Because of the way we're doing the design, I would like to have a construction manager on board for all of it, but it does not have to be done that way.
So the governor's put in $5 million in FY 26 and $1 million in 27. So combined there, you've got almost 16 million, and you don't know how you're gonna go forward in expending that, because you don't know what the issues are, why the bids, there were no bids, and what the stumbling block is. So who could do the work? On top of that, to get the equipment, the air handler system, everything is about 1.5 years lag. You're thinking to get the,
Potentially, yes.
so best case scenario, even for one facility that cost about 3 million to do the whole facility. Best case scenario to even get started would be the summer of 26.
Yes, but there's a however with that, and that is that if I can get a construction manager on board now, we settle on the design and what I need for an air handling unit and that equipment, I can get that pre-ordered.
Could you pre-order for the other 3 facilities as well? At the
If-
same time?
If with the estimate from my construction manager that we're within reason of the budget that's put forth, yes, we could do that.
But the other thing that's hanging over me right now is the work camp. Because we don't know what the new initiative the DOC is looking at with the 300,000 that's in the appropriations budget to convert that to treatment services. How that facility may have to be reconfigured, or there may need to be some renovations in that facility. We don't know that yet.
That's true. However, if there's no addition going on the building, the square footage or the cubic feet in that building is the same. So the unit that I'd size for that building would be pretty much the same. What I don't know and would need to know is what heat loads would be provided besides individuals in the room. You know, in this day and age with computers, that creates a larger heat load. So then I would have to accommodate for that. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I think we'd have a pretty close shot of what we would need for that facility before we actually have a final design for what corrections is going to do with that facility.
Facility, the way it's laid out, is an open concept,
Yes.
wide open. Depending who's going to be housed there for security levels, you might not be able to keep it in an open area with bunk beds. You may need to put up some walls. And how's that going to impact an HVAC system?
For the unit itself,
It wouldn't.
there'll be more ductwork, so there's more friction, so the fan size may have to be a little bit larger.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where what we do during design is, you know, if you need a 7.8 ton unit, we're gonna go with an 8 ton unit, and we're gonna go a little bit higher. But I think by the time that we be ready to pull the trigger on the permanent for the work camp, I think the programming would be in place for what DOC is going to be doing with that. And with that program, I could then have a good idea of what we're going to do. And size the unit appropriate.
Any thoughts? That's some questions.
Formally.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's for Joe, but is there sort of like temporary measures for the temporary measure at this point for, you know, some sort of portable units being put in open spaces or, I know it costs, I just hate going through another summer like this, you know, that's.
I think for part of assembly block and looking to kind of put a temporary spot with cinder block, which is a possibility to do that. That's the start. For the living spaces, we do have many splits throughout where like the front office, like I said earlier, the staff line area, we're adding 4 models, I think, in some of our facilities. We're doing what we can. to minimize the impact, but
Yeah.
we're
Go ahead.
The building is.
Mhm.
And Joe, what is the cost? Sorry to cover this, but what's the cost of the temporary?
I don't know yet.
Because we don't know that either.
Right. We've completed the design and I was waiting for the construction manager to give us that.
Is there a price that would preclude that from happening and be like, well, we schedule the supper and get to the real one?
I don't think so, because what we're looking to do is go with a heat pump model. And so that, you know, there's more of your commercial style heat pump so that we can put it to this room and its size for that room. But it also involves then, you know, drilling through the roofs and the lights of that to get that equipment down to it. But right now I don't have a dollar amount, so I'll get a contractor on board.
When do you expect to hear back from, or when do you expect to reach out to
We
the,
should be reaching out this week, getting some feedback, and then depending on what that feedback is, to go forward next week, the week after, to put that out. If it's just that they didn't have enough time to put their bid together, then it's easy to, you know, just put it back out on the street and go, okay, you know, you got an extra 2 weeks, nothing's changed, so they don't have to reevaluate all the plans and specifications there.
Keep going on this one. I'm going to be out for 2 seconds.
any other questions? Sean?
So you've got like future requirements of 16 million in fiscal year 28. What's that?
That's the Northwest.
That is for the Northwest State Correctional Facility.
That's for the Northwest ones.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that is going to be, you know, to the design team I have right now is not investigating that or design, but is to really go to see what we can do with that facility.
Mhm.
We also have two other renovation projects up there that are going to be taking place. So when we do that, like the administration in Sallyport area, those areas will be air conditioned when we do this addition.
Gotcha.
And you may have already answered this, but how did you arrive at your order of priority?
From the corrections.
Yeah. How did you guys come up with your order of priority?
Sorry, Al.
No, Southern being the newest facility, one of our largest, with the infirm population. Our infirmary is, as I mentioned earlier, it's air conditioned, but we have a mental health unit, we have an aging and infirm unit that is separate from the infirmary, so those are the populations that we were.
Most vulnerable, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Sure.
then
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, then Northern, the same way, we've got a small infirmary there, but again, an aging population,
Gotcha.
bigger population.
Gotcha.
I'm back on the VOSHA thing. What came out of that? Anything that you agreed to put in place for the workers?
There was nothing that came out, it was basically a warning from BOSHA
Okay,
to do.
so no requirements, no,
I mean, or was it a quarrel or a dictate to do this?
No,
That's you were gonna do it anyway,
but
but
this was something we were going to do,
Right.
and the warning was basically.
Speed it up.
Okay, let's do it.
and then what's your optimism around? What are you in, are we gonna have somebody? Are we gonna-
Well, we were meeting last week on this. I feel a lot better than I do today.
Okay,
So I don't know until we end up talking to these contractors and finding out what the issue is.
so no indication.
No, not until I talk with them to find out what. That's why I need to talk to them first to find out why they didn't submit a bid
Yeah,
and then go from there.
I'm just worried about this. I'm really worried about this. Can you just report when you get
Sure.
more information? Can you kind of give us an update on that?
Yes.
Gina?
Did you get the single bidder?
No bidders, no bidders at all.
No bidders.
No bid.
But there were a bunch of guys who walked through it with you.
Yeah, I forget how many firms actually walked through the pre-bid. I had there was no indication during the bid process that, for clarification, how's this going to work? It's too large, don't have the manpower, can't get the equipment. None of that came through in any questions that we have for the question and answer period. So I don't know. We did get questions, so it appeared that people were interested. So I don't know, but that's happened a lot now that we get 0 to 1 bid.
I don't know if this is gonna be helpful, but I'm gonna ask it because the SEA is in the room. Steve, would you mind, do you have testimony on this from your workers about what it's like? How bad it is? That, I don't want to spoon feed it, but I mean, that's my question. Do you have testimony?
Make sure you-
Steve, could you just introduce?
Sure. For the record, Steve Howard, I'm Executive Director of the VSEA. We certainly can provide firsthand testimony from members who have experienced the heat, who there was 4 incidents of heat stroke, similar experiences to heat stroke. But there were some consequences from the VOSHA complaint. There are some measures that the facility that were both recommended and required by VOSHA.
Can you get us details on that?
Yes.
Some of that was more breaks. Some of that was moving them into the current, some of the areas are air conditioned or, yeah, and then the
Uniforms.
uniforms, yeah.
Oh, the cooling vests? Yeah, I've seen those.
They don't work that well.
Yeah.
It's just added weight, and
No, they're light, but
They're
they're,
light, but they melt.
they melt fast. If it's 95 degrees in there.
what are they ones with air in them?
They're basically, it's like an ice pack. They wrap around your ankle, but it's full body size. They go into put them in the freezer, but they're good for about an hour.
Not the good technology, but like actual pump on, right? The good stuff. Gotcha.
Right.
And just, Joe, to clarify. If something were to happen, you could turn this around miraculously by the summer. You have the money that would let you do that right now?
I believe so, and for Southern State, yes.
Okay. I don't like this one.
What's not true?
It's just gonna continue to get worse.
To get pushed out even?
No, just the heat.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
like
for
the
sure,
fact
yeah.
that We're gonna have another summer, it's gonna be a hot summer.
Yeah.
and We're already at staffing crisis, and nobody's gonna wanna work there. Not to mention the folks who live there, who are incarcerated there. Yeah, it's
Yep.
not a good scenario, and I'm frustrated by it.
Yep.
Not anybody, it's just.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Sucky situation.
So. Sorry, so basically you've got enough money to do Springfield if it came through
Yes, I do.
and maybe for temporary in maybe Northern. Is anyone gonna have to move the residents out of units when you do this work?
Got a guy over there saying yes.
Maybe on a day basis. You know, the unit itself is gonna, or units are gonna be up on the roof, being piped down, and we're using the existing ductwork. So I don't know, you know, how much into the living unit space we actually have to be in. So right now, we're just completing a schematic design, so I'm not 100% sure really what that looks like. But there is no plan to move the individuals out. So I said it may be that if, you know, for core drilling through the roof and coming into a living unit, that would be, you know, during that time to have them out. And then if we had to bring in, depends on which living unit in the layout, staging to hang a unit or something from the ceiling, that would be different. But again, it would maybe just on a day-to-day basis.
So for DOC, what are you anticipating for possibly moving folks out?
Same thing. I think where we're gonna run into the movement piece is probably the next slide or two when we talk about the door control projects. That's where where we're gonna have to shut down full units to do the work.
So for this here specifically,
But
would you just move them into,
they could move into the gym, they could, you know, the rec yard for the day, depending on the weather. So yeah, they would stay right in the house.
Isaac?
I think, we've talked about this before, not to be too heavy handed, but this illustrates a couple of really important themes that the committee, I think, has circled around this year and in previous years, which is one, we need some excess capacity in the system as we think about the new women's facility, exactly these kind of projects, which will take units offline, even if temporarily, need slack in the system, and move folks around the facility. So we're thinking about that with the women's facility in particular, looking at that 85% capacity number to give us that 15% extra capacity. And then secondly, in Southern State, as we said, is our newest facility. And yet it is not contemporary. It's not designed to deal with our changing climate, with our critical workforce needs, to give, climate control for folks who are in custody, especially our vulnerable populations. So again, dealing with the limitations of very limited infrastructure here.
Are all the exterior windows sealed?
Depends on the
Like the-
facility, but no.
Like I'm looking at that green
The
room
green one?
and I see the window, it's clearly got bars. Is there a way to open up some of these windows and get some more airflow in there?
They only open so far if they are operable. I want to say everywhere where there is no air conditioning, they are operable.
Yeah, and they're open,
But
so,
it's the individual in the cell can actually open them themselves.
yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if there's a way to keep certain doors and maybe even throw fans in there.
That is something-
temporarily.
That is something we do in summer. We'll leave the door open on the top, the door open on the bottom, the windows are open, there's fans circulating.
So
So we're, yeah.
we
It's
got on that
concrete.
already.
It's a concrete building.
Yeah.
So once it heats up, it heats up.
Not only that, but if you get like I've never been there, but if you go into a cell, even with a window open, it's not gonna have super
You don't have.
massive
crosswind.
air.
Yeah, no, unless the doors are open.
You don't have-
That cell there, I can't tell, but I think it is a wet cell, but any,
What?
a wet cell.
Wet cell.
Any cell that has a toilet in it is 100% exhaust. So if you open the window with the door closed, you're still getting some airflow. There's also a gap under the door also. I'm not 100% sure about Springfield. I know all the other facilities have smoke exhaust fans. So an emergency evacuation that these fans are on, and they have turned those on also during the day to bring in that air and exhaust more.
Is there a way to cool from there?
There's no cooling ability other than just the airflow.
Yeah, and can figure out a way to put some sort of cooling unit.
No, because your exhaust is exactly right at the roof or sidewall, and it's just exhaust. It's a large fan. So it
Gotcha.
would have to be at every window yet.
Yeah,
So the 4.7 million that you got left would get you through doing all of Southern, but you wouldn't be able to really start construction until next summer because of the supply chain issue. The delay in getting,
That's a maybe.
It's a
This is
maybe.
where I'm looking for a construction manager to help out and go. If you can only get one or two plumbers on the site, they can be there and working along until that unit shows up for its final connection. So yes, we would not wait for that unit to be on site to start construction.
you
It would
could
be-
start construction if you're only at schematic design, so it's gonna take you a while to get to construction documents.
I don't recall the timeline on that, but with a construction manager though, if we could order the pipe and stuff like that and actually start work.
So you could start work by this summer.
It's possible. I need a contractor to have that discussion, but yes, it is.
But the 4.7 million that's left would get you through the full construction.
My best estimate that I had a year and a half ago, yes.
And then if you had some money in FY 26 and a placeholder in FY 27. Because we're tying up $6 million here.
Mhm.
And we have no idea when it's gonna go out the door to do even temporary at Northern and Northeast Caledonia.
The temporary is being done. It was 300,000 in 24. I think
800.
800, yeah, but I think in 24, we had
Do it.
300,000. There were two line items in 24, and one was for the temporary. That's at 300. So we are going to be doing temporary in these at least three facilities. Al and I were just talking about the work camp today because of population and also the potential change, whether or not it is worthwhile to do temporary. The work camp itself, because they are just two large day rooms, basically, what you would need to cool that one space is the same size unit I'm going to be doing permanent. So it might be that the temporary solution is a permanent solution. But with the changes that are potentially coming, we still need to have those discussions.
And the work camp is designed quite different than your southern, northern, and northeast. Your work camp doesn't have walls. Your work camp doesn't have individual cells. A lot of the beds are empty. And the work camp model is the folks physically leave the building during the day and go out and do work. So it's not, to me, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the committee. I would think that would be a low priority compared to southern, northern, and northeast. Because we don't know what's gonna happen with what's gonna be provided there in the future.
Mhm.
They're out of that building during the day. There's only, how many beds are being used? 40, if that, out of 100. So half the facility is empty. And it's an open area with bunk beds. So, and you don't, is it concrete? Is that facility concrete's metal? It's steel building, so it's not concrete. So I would put that way down on the bottom of the. That's just me talking.
Dry ice in a fan, Joe.
I want to make sure that we provide relief. I want to make sure there's enough money to go to construction for one facility for the southern. And to make sure that there's enough money to do temporary in some of the units, some of the key places in northern and northeast. And you got 4.7 million. That would definitely cover construction at the southern. If you had some money in FY 26, would then allow you to also do temporary. And FY 27 would be a placeholder. Is what I'm thinking. And I know the returning members know what I mean with placeholder. We can talk about that with you folks.
Not only that, but there's another issue, at least to me, when I look at it, I realize the money is the problem. We have this list and yes, I agree with the per camp. But you have another facility that's not even on the priority list really because of the costs, but the workers and people there matter just as much as at the other facilities. So like that's gotta be figured out too, so.
That one, but it's a bigger conversation depending on what we do with Marble Valley.
Yeah.
That's a bigger conversation there.
I know, but it is.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if you were looking, because right now I'm looking to hire a construction manager to do all 4 sites.
Okay.
If there's not going to be funding for all 4, as projected here, that changes the outcome of that bid also. So that is, we're anticipating this and telling the contractor that. If you're thinking of not providing the funding as recommended, then that CM, when I rebid that, would change up a little bit and say that, say, Northeast would be an option in an out year. And so I will get a price. It will be a good, a price today. And then when that option is kicked in, we get the actual price
That be for the temporary space or for doing the whole facility at North?
in the whole facility.
But realistically, when would you start construction? If you had that 5 million in 26, would you start construction at Northeast and Northern for the full facility in FY 26? That would be from July of this year until June of next year.
Depending on the manpower from the construction manager and the other trades, yes, that would be our intent. Because we would have that funding and to be able to be working our way through. If I only get 2 plumbers and an HVAC tech for all sites, that would be the hardship. But the intent is to focus on Springfield first. But once that piping ductwork is in place, if it's the same crew, I can then leapfrog to the next site until the unit arrives. Then we go in, put the unit in, and then come back. So the intent is to have the funding and keep going.
Yeah.
Seems like the long pole is whether we even have contractors. How quickly do you think you'll get back to the contractors and understand whether we even have somebody to do it?
We'll be contacting them today and tomorrow to find out exactly what their concerns were, why they didn't bid, and then based on that, I will turn the RFP around and put it back on the street as soon as possible. It could be as early as next week or the week after, depends on how much I have to tweak that RFP based on what I've learned.
My reason for the question is until we have that answer, there's a lot of hypotheticals, but we really can't have a schedule until whether we know somebody to work or not.
True. And so the worst case would be is a contractor feedback is we can only do one,
right?
Not all of them. Okay, so then the RFP would be, I would stagger it, that at first I would get Southern State moving and then still put it out to bid a month later for the next facility so that the bidders then are aware of whether they won or lost. So they had an idea and then move forward on that.
But until we know that, We can talk hypotheticals all day long, but
Doing that almost on a weekly basis with the projects we bid out. We don't get bids. Right now for retainer contracts, we basically, our average is one bidder on line items. Here in the capital bill, we get two. That's our average.
Maybe it's just me, but to me, the worst case scenario is in a situation where you didn't get bidders. Right, but you go back out and you reach out to them and you're able to find somebody finally. Because clearly the interest isn't there. And you finally get somebody that's like, yes, we can do this and we can do it all. And you go, I can't because I didn't get the money. I don't have the money to pay you. Okay. So then you lose that person or entity. That's my worst case. I don't always feel that way, but I feel that way this time, and maybe it's just you're a good salesman.
It's one of those things that you don't know when you go out to bid with multiple sites throughout the state to do that. That's the hardship. If it was all in one location, it makes it easier because everybody knows they're going to be there and scheduling's a lot easier. That's where this one, across the state is different. We were looking at that model because working with the design team, one contractor, all the same. So it's like the contractor is able to come to you and go, that model that the design team specified is 15 months. If you go with this model, we can get it in 10. And then, so there's a discussion of how are they equal?
Yeah.
And you have that discussion with the design team. If the design team then says, I agree, we're up and running and going that way. If they say it's not equal, okay, then you're further out.
Yeah.
But that's the discussion that we have, and that's why we bring for something like this, a construction manager on board as soon as possible, so that we can do that.
Yeah, this is more of a philosophical thing, not necessarily for you, Joe, but it's that when we're talking about, this is working conditions and living conditions, is to me, is much different than, and I'm gonna say something, people are gonna be like, not those things again, but a fire tower, if we didn't have the money, we can do it next year, whatever, it's not hurting anybody. But if it's a living condition thing, it's a little different for me, and I want to make sure you have what you need or we need in order to go like that if somebody does respond. And it's kind of, as Kevin had alluded to, yeah, we don't know. We can speculate all day long. But there's sometimes where, at least from my philosophical belief, I'm willing to take the risk, and in other things where they're not as important to me. But everybody else's could have a very different philosophical belief. That's fine.
It's difficult. You may get the contract and it's got a hole in their schedule and go, I can do it. And then I get to say, well, we don't have the money.
Yeah.
Thanks, but, or it's vice versa. I got the money, I don't have the contractors.
Yeah.
And that's the gamble we play. And I can't necessarily say working inside of the correctional facility is the worst location, but background checks, probably the worst is public safety, because that's fingerprinting to get into work in a public safety facility. But the actual work, when you have to,
You may have former residents.
go through and count your tools to make sure everything's accounted for on the way in and on the way out, that does take time and increases the cost. Clearly understand that. Contractors understand it also. When there's not a lot of work out there, they're more than willing to work for us. But if you're going to go work on an office building that has no background checks at all, that's the one you're going to go to. You'll make more money that way.
Understand?
So
It's tough.
time frame. You're anticipating in the next week or two to be able to at least get a construction manager that you can talk with, know what was going on, why there was no bids that came back. And then once you clarify all that, hopefully in 3 to 4 weeks, which brings us to the end of March almost, you'd be going out to bid.
Correct.
So as the session progresses, we will know a little bit more. And at that point, this bill will be over in the Senate. We can make changes as a committee. We can make changes on this side. We have. And then more information comes to light once the bill's over in the other body. And then we negotiate.
Completely off topic, but in the picture was just shown, is that a shower and a cell?
That, no,
No.
The green one on the left is
No.
a south, the one on
we're gonna
the
go.
right? Oh, the next one?
Yeah, so,
It's off topic. I was
yeah,
just curious.
so anything else on this one before we get into the next line item? So we got $6 million on top of what's left is 4.7. That's a big chunk of money.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have to balance this out. Yeah, we don't want to slight you, but also we're looking at time frame, and we'll have a better idea when we come back after town meeting where we are.
I just want to understand our work better. So I feel like I have all the information that I need. We're going to hash this out next week, right?
We're gonna start markup. So
Yeah.
markup is saying, do they need the 5 million FY 26?
Yeah.
And what we may end up doing is saying, we're gonna cut that back to 4
Right.
and put a placeholder in FY 27 at have 500,000.
But no need to have that conversation today as long as we have the information we want.
Great.
And then, I mean, that may be, or you may keep it the way it is. Another thing we could do is keep it at 5 for 26 and 0 out 27, knowing we have budget adjustment. There's a variety of things that can be done.
That's where the fun part starts.
We'll see. But we might get more information when we come back after town meeting, so we might be thinking one thing next week. And then when we come back after town meeting, BGS may say, hey, we can't even get through the construction managers, we don't know. Or they could say, yep, we got somebody on board, this is the conversation we had, we're going out to bid, these are the dollar numbers we're looking at.
Mhm.
Is that fair, Joe? And then we have more information. So the capital bill is very fluid. So when we do markup the information we have at the time, knowing it's gonna change once it gets over to the center.
Mhm.
And knowing they're gonna change these numbers, and then it will get negotiated between two committees.
And,
Because information is gonna be different in April and May than it is now.
and as new people will find out, like we could get all the way through and have marked things up and say 5 million for this, 2 million for this. We cut a little here, cut a little there, add a little, get to the last piece and we're like, we really need some money from here. And have to go back to another section and go, well, this is where we're gonna find this money. And, so it's not just like you do it once.
But
and
we're
put
gonna
away.
go through
It's
it
like a-
6 times
Yep.
before we figure out the.
And that's
full
okay.
amount. Kevin,
Sorry for the freshman question, but the Senate doesn't get this level of detail, do they?
they might, yeah.
Yes, they
They're
do.
taking
So they may be
testimony
getting
now.
parallel information with us.
They're taking testimony
And-
now.
And we come to.
I'll give the same spiel I gave
Okay,
here.
good. I didn't know whether that happened or not. Good.
Well, I'm gonna throw something out that could be bargaining chips too,
Oh,
but I don't know anything about those.
That's the-
wow.
You'll figure it out. You gotta have something to negotiate, folks. Just putting that on the table. You gotta have something to negotiate.
Waiting all week, all session.
For what, walleyes?
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
finally here today.
Skidder bridges, it's the skidder bridges. Okay, let's go. We're running out of time here.
ADA compliance at correctional facilities. Came about because of the Department of Justice settlement at 3 facilities, Southern State, Northern State, and Chittenden Regional. We have completed the work at Southern State. We did that at the same time we were doing door control down there. At Northern State, I believe we're under contract to move forward with that, or we're going after RFP. Give me a second here. We're under contract. We're negotiating a contract right now for that work. For Northern State and Chittenden also, we are working on a contract with a contractor. At Chittenden, that was our worst site. We went out to public bid for that one. No bids. We did it a second time, no bids. We invited 3 bidders and only got 1 bid. And that was actually trying to convince them that it could be good for their portfolio so that we can use them again. So it is the climate out there is very difficult. The ADA work, the construction work that has to go on to comply with the ADA is not extensive. In most of these facilities, Chittenden is the worst case. Here in the picture on the upper left, you can see where the bunk on the right-hand side is sort of on the floor. That is something that has to be raised up because we have an individual in a wheelchair to get down to that level. It's not appropriate, so they have to come up. A lot of it is going around and grab bars are not the right height. Controls are not the right height. And so from the date that these were originally installed, they did comply. ADA has changed since then, the standards, and that was back in 2010. But we have a captive audience, and that is why the Department of Justice is saying in this case, we do have to comply. So we are going through to make those changes in the other two facilities.
So Joe, some of this ADA compliance, do you run into any issues with ligatures in that piece?
We shouldn't, because other than like if we're redoing a shower, that is a shower.
That's what I was looking at.
If there is a grill that probably has large size holes, we could easily address it at that point in time. I think most of those have already been addressed. However, they're creative, and I don't know how many times I've changed grills at facilities, but at least twice since I've been here, so.
And all of this work must be completed by this year.
That is correct. October 27th. This is an extension that we have asked for because of the bidding climate and also the funding we could not have. We're also required to have an independent architect oversee the work.
Good.
Yes, that was a requirement. And so DOC has a contract with an architect who's involved with looking at the drawings and then walking the site at the end to make sure we are compliant.
So Northern is right now under contract. Is that right? Did I?
Contracts pending, same with Chittenden.
Okay, so it's still contract is pending
Yes.
in Northern?
It's just, so it's circulating for signatures.
Question.
Okay, go ahead.
Kind of a dumb question, but like that bed, the bunk. To any normal person that's low, but are you required to put every single one of them at a higher level or just?
Now, this, in the particular section, it's a holding cell. So that's the reason why. It is because any of the intakes that are coming in,
I got you.
you need to, yeah.
So, but not every single bunk has to be it. Okay.
Okay,
I'm just curious.
It depends on which facility you are. There are stairs that are going down or up into the living unit, so they're not in that aspect.
Okay.
There are lifts and or other situations.
so what if you don't get contracts? What if you don't get any more bids? What if they?
Don't need any more bids, only the fact that we have the contract circulating to be in place for this project now. So we're good to go.
You're good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah.
It'll be a race to get it done. So the picture on the upper right, that's at Northern State Correctional Facility, and that is going from the upper yard down to the lower yard, and the gravel path is not compliant with the ADA standards. So some of it I think is too steep, plus the gravel. So we're looking to either go with pavement or concrete.
If you didn't have the money, you wouldn't be able to complete this and meet the October 27th deadline.
DOC on the hook for the settlement. We're, in this case, BGS is only doing the work.
Want to weigh in at all on this, Al?
No, I mean, I think Joe did. I mean, this came as a result of several complaints filed. DOJ stepped in, the 3 facilities. They did not, and again, it was just these 3, they didn't look at the other 3. This could have cost us a lot more. I'm sure issues would have been found, but, so yeah, these are certainly priority spots to get these issues addressed and into compliance. We're required to update the DOJ on a regular basis and they ask questions.
Great. Anything else? Let's move on.
Correctional facility safety and security upgrades. In the last biennium, there was not a request for this. Request that DOC typically does. It's for their additional items or changes that they have in programming or alterations and likes of that, like for suicide prevention, PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and the likes of that there's an issue. They need to address it, and they use these funds to do it. Sometimes it, can involve in some additional fencing because of an incident. Protect this area here, camera, the likes of that. Corrections tells us what they want, and BGS does the work.
Do you want to weigh in on any of this now, Al? Because I know you also have a document here too, but it goes,
And then the security upgrades are highlighted in there as well. This is ongoing maintenance. We talk about deferred maintenance on the BGS side. This is basically the deferred maintenance for the security and operations of our facility. And to Joe's point, upgrades to our camera systems, replacements to our cameras, the PREA compliance component. Each facility is audited every 2 years by the federal government. They'll come in, they may identify a blind spot that could be a potential area for an assault of some type to occur in. They'll recommend a camera be placed there. So we use that money for that. To Joe's point, the fencing, we need to move some cables, or we need to attach new fixtures to a wall. This is all the security funding.
Madam Chair, not to get off topic, but can I turn the heat up just a little bit?
it's fine with me.
Okay.
I've turned it up some because,
Did you just now?
no, but it was way down.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
Fine with me.
Turns it down, comes in.
Then she turned it up even more. I'm not getting,
Just turned it up a little bit.
yeah, it's fine. Any questions on this one?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
So do you have this? So this money,
This is for FY 26 and 27.
okay,
There's no money that's been,
there's nothing
appropriated.
there yet.
there has
This-
been probably in the.
There has been in past years, and I think we finally allocated all of it just last
Okay,
month before, something like that. So they are
Oh, came
out
in.
of money.
Before
Thank
the
you.
3 of them came in.
thanks,
Now,
Joe.
the majority of that was spent on camera upgrades.
Wow.
Next, we have the Marble Valley Regional Correctional Facility, the door control system replacement. Yes, this is, back in the day, you had a wire that went to everything. And it's multiple wires that go to a door lock. I can't remember off the top of my head, even if it's a pneumatic lock, I think there's like 8 wires that have to go there. It's, 4 for the lock, 2 for the door position switch and the likes of that. So all that goes away, becomes more digitized. So really what you're looking at now is, instead of running all of this spaghetti, different size wires and relays, it's Cat6 cabling that is running here and there and everywhere. The benefits of this is, in the past, you can see the panels on the bottom left. You had buttons, toggle switches and the likes of that you dealt with, and they're becoming very difficult to get. And instead, you're going to a touchscreen system on the upper right, and where you can actually see and zoom in when issues are going on. We can shut off the water flow if need be, if there's an incident going on, lights, fans, and some of the likes of that in that whole touchscreen system. It is the way of the modern world of going to a computer behind it. So there are switches and everything else in the attic spaces and the likes of that, but they do have a lot more control. And so when you, incidents going on, they also have the ability to have the camera system on that also. If there's somebody, through the intercom system, you push a button, if you're at a door, that camera actually comes up at that door. You get to see an individual who's on either side of that door. And should you push the button to allow them to go through that door.
Yeah, are you able to, the Cat5 wire, are you able to fish it through all the existing conduit that this wire is running through? Or do you
In
have to
most
run it
cases, yes. At Marble Valley, and I'll get a little bit more of that in Northeast Regional, is that all of those doors that they had up there were not where they were on key system, they weren't all electronic like that, so that's another, so we do have to run additional conduits. Newport facility had additional conduits already in place when we did the original construction and the renovation, so a lot of that was already reusable. So,
And you don't run into any kind of stuff, the existing conduit in the places that has it.
in conduits, typically not a code issue. It's-
Okay.
When it's free air, that it then becomes a code issue. So,
Yeah.
yes. And then they are addressed at that point in time, but it's typically not a lot. The
Cool.
expense here is in the locks and the doors. A lot of the doors over the 20+ years have taken an abuse. And the way that these doors function is on the lighting system you have so that you know when the door is open and it's secure, or maybe slightly closed, but not locked, not secure. And so there are 3 indicator lights that tell you that. And so it's a magnet in the door, and that door has to be physically locked. So good way to warp a nice heavy metal doors, put a hook in the door, jam and slam the door, and it warps it. And just that little bit of 1/8 of an inch fills that magnet out. And so a lot of this other work also is going through and correcting some of those doors and frames.
So the 500,000 gets you what? Because it's projected to be a $3.3 million job. So 500,000 gets you what?
This is the
27.
4th facility that'll be going through upgraded door control system, and that will start and complete our design. St. Johnsbury and Rutland are almost identical buildings. Rutland was constructed first, and basically they took the same prints, erased Rutland off of it and put St. Johnsbury on it, made a few changes. One of the changes that they made, which was on our benefit, was they did not do air conditioning in St. Johnsbury like they did in Rutland. But that was one of those probably cost-saving things. But so the design that we have in St. Johnsbury pretty much will work at Marble Valley. We just have to be specific to Marble Valley and be able to get that ready. Final design, and then in the future year, we'll be asking for construction funds.
Or just Marble Valley?
Could be St. Albans at the same time also.
So what I'm seeing is for FY 28 and 2029, it's like 2.8. Would that just be Marble Valley, or is that sort of anticipating St. J, or?
Be able to put that in our table.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It would be to do start construction at Marble Valley.
Yeah, let's move on.
So another rookie
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Right. So this information is also provided to the administration for them to have a 10-year plan. That's how he's got that's how our 10-year plan has 2.8 million in FY 28 and 29.
Yes. The administration created.
Three bodies are getting basically the same information.
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, this was generated by the administration.
Right,
This is
that's why I was
yeah.
wondering how
Oh,
they knew to do that.
Because they get the request from DOC. They get the request from BGS. This all happens in the fall. This all starts to happen in August and September. That the individual departments and agencies submit their capital requests, what they see on the horizon, to the 5th floor. Then once the 5th floor, of course, they've gotten direction from the 5th floor that your budget can only increase by 1% or 2%, or you have to cut 2% in your budget. Those directions go out first on the 5th floor to the departments and agencies. Then they make their request, not just with the capital budgeting, but also your general fund appropriations. And then, once the administration, the 5th floor, receives all that, then they crunch the numbers. And then January, 3rd week in January, the governor presents a proposed budget to the legislature. And then we take it from there. So that's the process. Next.
So up next is the St. Johnsbury, the northeast correctional complex up there. And so what we're looking at is both the Northeast Regional Correctional Facility and the Caledonia Work Camp. There are not that many locked doors in the work camp compared to the correctional facility. But this, we have a RFP under review right now to go out on the streets for advertising for construction. And we hope to be in construction late summer, fall, if all goes well. We'll get any bidders. So what we're doing again, as I mentioned, similar to Marble Valley and the other facilities, it's mainly about the door control system. We're also doing the camera system because that's tied into door control. As I mentioned, when you hit the intercom button, you have the cameras that'll look at that, and it's also around the rest of the facility. There's also an intrusion detection system on the perimeter fence. So if you touch the fence, we know you're there. And that also is being upgraded at the same time. And a lot of this money then goes through to make those repairs. So we've done an assessment on the doors that have to be replaced and the frames that have to be tweaked. New locks are going in. Those locks are original from the facility went in the 70s. And at that same time, as Al mentioned, we will be moving the individuals out of the living unit while this work is being done, because there'll be no doors on, stuff like that. And at the same time, we'll be doing some major maintenance work in there while that unit is empty. So that gives us a great opportunity to catch up on some of the deferred maintenance that you wouldn't normally tackle because you got to bring in a lift or staging and the likes of that. Unit gets painted too, typically at the same time.
So are you DOC, you're gonna have to relocate?
Yes, one unit at a time. So, the benefit with this project is those living units are only 30-bed units. So it's a small number of folks, so we have to move one unit at a time. So with 30 individuals, we can, for the most part, keep them spread throughout the system in state without having to send them out of state.
Sometimes for folks, when we close a unit of 50 beds, at least, we sometimes have to move folks out of state. Because it takes time to do the work. And we don't have enough beds in state to absorb it. And that's what Al just said, the 30 beds, we can absorb those in state. But sometimes the cost to some of our corrections construction work is paying for those out-of-state beds. The house folks.
Newport, when we did Newport, we had to retrofit the gym and folks to the gym for the duration of the project.
So that paid for additional hours for the officers to be there instead of housing them out of state. We did the same thing in Springfield. We were able to fit up the gym and they used that for living quarters.
So to help the committee know how our work is intertwined with Appropriations Committee. We don't work in isolation apart from Appropriations Committee. Our two budgets are intertwined, some years more so than others. But when we've done major construction in some of our correctional facilities, I think it happened in Springfield, was it the steam, maybe the steam and maybe the door? There was a pressure on the DOC budget to pay for those out-of-state beds during the time of construction. Appropriations needed, they were having trouble meeting the needs out there. And they came to us and said, can you help us pick up some of the costs in the capital budget? And we did that. So it took some pressure off DOC's budget that helped our general fund. And we picked up that cost as part of the construction for that particular project. So that's how we work in tandem with our colleagues in appropriations. Our budgets are connected. That makes sense to folks?
Yeah. Yes. Next up, we have the Northwest State Correctional Facility in St. Albans, the roof replacement project. We put this out last year. And I spoke on to it earlier because we had prior funding for this and we had over $500,000 difference in the bids. We put it out. We did not have enough funds to do this project. And so we started to regroup and say, what can we do for less roof replacement for the funding that we had? By the time we're going to get that out to bid, we're still going to be behind July 1st, I believe is the date, when the new energy code standards came into place.
Just July 1st or what?
It's just past July 1st. January, July 1st, I forget the date. And so we have to now comply with the new standards. So we're having our design team go back through, and it's roughly adding an inch of insulation to everything. But what that does is we were already adding insulation to the roof decks.
Mhm.
So all of our fascia boards and curbs and vents and the likes of that all have to be raised. So they're going back through and doing that, and also doing a structural analysis to make sure that by adding that 1 inch of insulation, we don't have to do structural repairs or additions to carry the potential additional snow load.
Just an inch.
We already are, the original design had additional insulation added, so to meet the new standards, we're adding, I believe it's roughly an inch that we have to add. So they're going through. So we're doing 10 roofs across. So on the upper photo here, you see is the darker shaded buildings are the ones that are getting done. Some of them are metal. Some of the sheds that are out there that are failing are corrugated metal, but the majority of it is asphalt shingles for the pitch roofs. And then for the flat roof, it's a membrane that we have to do. In some of the roof areas, there are different elevations. So what maintenance has to do at times is to go through and carry a ladder with them to go from one roof to the other. And then when they're done, they're taking the ladder off. So
Okay, we
now,
gotta take that ladder off.
now we're also incorporating a permanent set of stairs to get you there so they don't have to carry that ladder, because you're making multiple trips when, you know, if you're changing a belt and the air handler, the belt can usually go around your neck as you put the ladder up and climb the ladder. If it's a motor, you know, you're carrying the ladder first and you're going back down, you gotta go get the motor, you bring the motor up, then you go get your tools, or, you know, you have to do that whole mess. This way, at least they'll have a set of stairs that they can get around the roofs and access the equipment a lot easier. So with this funding, we're hoping to get it back out to bid and have it completed this summer. Late summer.
So need to ask it, but I'm gonna. We've put in money for the booking area in St. Albans.
Yes.
And where are we in that particular little project?
That is developing an RFP that'll soon be going out on the street for the design.
We did that with cash.
With that project there, depends on how, because it involves a salary port in the booking area also. It depends on how the design plays out, depends on whether or not we'll be redoing, asking the town to rezone up there. Because they have an overlay for a correctional facility, it's basically the perimeter fence. So if the booking area is outside of that perimeter, the extended perimeter, then we'll be having those discussions for them to increase that overlay.
So you have a total, I'm looking at last year's spreadsheet for the booking. You received 2.6 million bonded dollars last year. And you received 600,000 cash the previous year. So 3.2 million is for that whole project. Is that gonna get it done? Is that what you're anticipating?
That's what we are anticipating. The thought being, without having the design in place, the thought being is the area of the administration right now. That's where we will expand the booking area into. And then the administration portion of that will be either an addition onto or a separate building with a covered walkway going to the existing facility.
So it's still kind of up in the air which direction you're gonna go. And we had language too,
Yeah,
onto that too.
can we ask you to seek some money from the feds on that?
To what?
Seek money from the feds?
I think there was a request for that and I don't know.
I think that ever came.
Because we do the federal marshals,
Yeah.
because the detainees and ICE are coming through that booking.
Nothing. Interesting.
On that last slide, Joe, you probably was a big Russell.
That's the next slide, yes?
Oh, the next slide.
Sorry, yeah, I hit a button.
Keep teasing me.
I'm sorry. Well. Keeps you on.
It's more of a question for you. So
Me?
you're pulling this information, you're talking about a project from a year or two ago?
A couple years ago. You'll
Right.
find that when you're here for a while.
Okay. So then, but I'm asking you why you're asking him about that, I guess, because
Because it's at the same facility.
okay. And is there money that's still left to pay that? or-
3.2 million.
Okay, that you used or that you didn't use?
Not used it yet. We haven't got it out the door. So
Booking area.
Okay,
So the booking area is the roofing work gonna go over any of the current booking areas.
I'm not sure. Okay.
They get renovated.
So the booking area is right here. You come into the Sally Port behind this wall, and then this is the actual secure side. There's a very large concrete brick-faced wall that separates the secure side from the non-secure side, instead of running a fence up and over like we did at Springfield. So the admin area is out in here. So that area here is what Madam Chair is talking about, is that area there probably is going to become part of the booking, the new booking area, if not all of it. They're looking, right now, there's a drive here, so when you come down this drive right here into the Sally Port,
Yeah.
basically, it only holds one vehicle. And people arrive and they're waiting in line, and then sometimes you gotta, get the valet out there to back people up, so you get that car out, so you get the next individual in. And because they're very busy up there, that is a problem, so they're looking, DOC has asked for sort of a drive-through so that you don't have that. When you're looking at the site right here, it may be possible. I don't know yet, and that's what the design team is going to be looking at when we do that.
So is there roofing that's going over the current?
This roof here, yes, is going to be done. Also, the wall is going to be done. On this face of the wall here is parged. That parging has fallen off. That was done in 84, 85, I think, when we put this addition on. And on the front side is brick. Don't know why, but the brick is starting to pull away from the concrete. Concrete's sound. Got some cracks into it, but so we're going to re-anchor all of the brick facade on that into the concrete wall.
So if you're gonna redo the whole booking area, Sally Port, how is that gonna impact? How's the roofing gonna impact any of the changes that you're gonna be
I
making?
don't know, but at this point, what we'd be looking at is the potential timing and do an alternate deduct to allow that to be removed from the contract if our design shows that we're going to be having to need to demo the roof or the likes of that. But if we don't address the roofs, then we're having additional water damage on the inside that we then have to maintain, and or potentially up there with the high winds, it could be more of a catastrophic failure of, wet insulation falling down and lots of that.
So would it help you? Just throwing this out. You've got 3.2 million previous 2-year appropriation for the booking. And then you've got a proposed 1.2 for FY 26 for a total of 2.9 for the roofing project. Would it be helpful for you to be able to move money around between those two projects?
Possibly, but I don't know that. It all depends how they play out.
Can you check on that? Sure. Because I'm just thinking of flexibility that you might need, and we'd have to put language in the bill to allow you to have that flexibility, because I think whatever you're gonna do with the booking is gonna have an impact on your roof. And whatever you're gonna do for roofing might have an impact on your booking. So those two projects, in my mind, are linked. And if we can help you in having some flexibility and move the money between the 22 and 23, 3.2 million, and the 2.9 here for 26 and 27 and 24 and 25. Just to kind of help in this whole project. But we need to have language to that.
Next up, the Northern State Correctional Facility, we're doing sprinkler system repairs. This is being done on a dry system, and this pipe that you see here was an actual pipe that was let go for a minor flood because it had rusted through. So what happens with your dry systems is exactly that. Your pipes are supposed to be dry. What happens is not everything gets installed with the correct pitch. Over time, something sags or moves or the likes of that. If you get a pocket of water that sits there, corrosion starts on the pipe. And so we do have that in a lot of locations at that facility that we have at the A2 building that we have to address. So we'll go back through and remove all the damaged pipes and basically just replace it. And we're coming up at our 20-year mark, so probably the sprinkler heads also will be replaced at the same time while we're doing this work. So you have to go through and they now make a nice little gun that you can hold up. So like a sonogram, you hold it up to the pipe and you can actually see if any of it's included on the inside. And if it's built up, so it's got to be part of it.
Is part of that, like chemical corrosion? Because don't you periodically pressurize the system with
It's
the goo that they put in first before the water?
There's no goo that we install. There could be
Yeah,
antifreeze if you had an antifreeze loop, but code has changed on that. That limits the size of that antifreeze loop.
yeah,
So now in a lot of situations are going to a dry pipe. So
okay,
this way, there's theoretically no water in it,
right,
so it won't freeze.
sure,
As soon as that head goes off, I forget code, it's 30 seconds or something like that. You're supposed to have water at that head.
yeah,
So it depends on the distance. By the time you figure out what that noise is, you're going to get wet.
yeah,
And so that's why it's dry.
sure,
But there are low points.
right.
Sometimes
That's
hanger
just water
side.
corrosion, huh?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
It happens more often than not. It's just for some reason happening a lot more up in Newport.
Huh.
It could be the water, but
Water
I don't
in
know.
the steel, clog of the steel or whatever.
Water's probably really hard.
you never know. No, it is hard at that facility.
Vermont. It's challenging.
Is that it?
That's the end. This time I want to do a good picture so we can get to the end fast.
No, that's helpful. And that says it all right there.
So I know at the DOC, you've had this document, and we've basically gone through it,
Same thing.
same thing. So I can distribute that to the committee. Any last thoughts, questions, comments from DOC at all?
So they speak for themselves.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so as I said, we're gonna start markup, do a little bit of that next week, and then do the bulk of it when we come back after town meeting break, because we need to get this bill out in March. Sometime third week in March, fourth week in March, somewhere around there. So we can't, we're so linked into appropriations that we're not gonna be able to finalize our final capital bill budget until the Probes finalizes their budget. So we're linked. Anything else?
That is it.
Hey, you want to stick around for the Historical Society?
Oh, do I have to stick around? You good on your own.
Don't have to, but you know.
Anything
I
else?
support them. How's that?
Yeah, let's take a